welcome to episode 6 of the Precision Tennis Pulse podcast. This is Pat, and I'm here with Nick. And we're here today to talk about competitive psychology and things you can do during a match that can kind of spark a way to get back into it if you're down, or how to keep your composure if you're up as well. So what do you think, Nick? What's one of the good points we have here?
Yeah, I think this is a nice compact list of 5 things that people can do. Came up with 5. And yeah, going right from the very beginning of a match, even before the match, right? What you want to do, and during, just things to keep your mind on while you're playing. Things we've seen that people struggle with. So yeah, number 1 would be just to exude confidence prior to the match. Yeah. Because you always have those moments before the match when you're just kind of mulling around, the tournament, and you're walking around. You might sort of walk past your opponent that you're going to play, or you'll see them from a distance, and you guys, there's this tension and energy. Yeah. It's undeniable, and
you don't want to show weakness, right? Or present weakness.
Yeah. You don't want to usually people don't start talking too much with their opponent beforehand, right?
They don't at all.
You want to avoid that, generally speaking, because that you're just opening yourself up to any kind of mental games or anything that might be being played. The opponent could say something like, "Oh yeah, my back's been really killing me lately." Yeah. To try to relax you, and "Oh, I'm not gonna. I hope I just win a few games, man." Something like this. Even if they don't mean it as a gamesmanship thing, you just want to avoid those situations happening.
I find that that's much more common if when recreational players are getting together to hit. Whether it's if they organize it themselves, decide to meet up and hit and chat before, or if it's organized by an organization. That's where you'll kind of see people chatting. We're like, "Oh, what'd you have for dinner? What are you doing? This and that." They'll kind of try to get to know each other a little bit. And then, the people with more experience, they'll try to get some information out of the person and see if they can get a bit of an edge. But I think at the higher levels, that's, it does happen, maybe, in passing someone by. But you don't really spend a lot of time with your opponent with an opportunity to kind of chat or talk about at those higher levels. You're mostly kept separate until... maybe you'll walk down the tunnel together, or you'll walk to the court together. But at that point, you're focused on what you're doing, and you're starting to think about your game plan and what you're going to do on court. But
the most you should say at that point is just have a good match, good luck. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
From what I remember playing competitively, there can be some interesting moments there, who gets the can of balls. Because even that, then you can start playing games there. You could
give them 1 ball, or you give them 2 balls, or you give them no balls, and you keep all the balls in your pocket.
Yeah, some of those things can be pretty petty, and especially if there's a really large level difference. If not, though, those things can work.
Sometimes I remember, even in something simple like when you're warming up your serve with an opponent, and on their 3rd serve they hit the net, and they pick up the ball and then go back and hit a 4th serve. That used to annoy me. I was like, man, we're only supposed to do 3 at a time, and then give it to your opponent, and then they get to do 3, and then you do
right
a certain amount of times. And I get it when if they rushed and they got the ball, ran back and hit their 4th serve, that's fine. But sometimes I'll just see people slowly just kind of jauntily walking over to the ball, picking it up casually, slowly walking back, and then hitting their 4th serve like that. First of all, you're taking time away from my warm-up of my serve, which is not fair.
Yeah.
And, those kind of things, just be aware of it and try not to let it get in your head, because it could be intentional, it could not be intentional. You don't want to place blame when there isn't any, too. Some people might just not know certain social customs of warm-ups, or they could be oblivious. They could be in their own zone
completely. So generally speaking, it's I put here Peacock when you walk on the court. Now, what do I mean by this? I just mean keep your shoulders back, keep your back straight, keep your chin up, walk out confidently.
Look like an athlete. Right?
Just
look like you're
not for anybody but yourself. Like you're doing this to program your brain to get ready to play the match well, and to know, to trust in the fact that you've practiced, you worked hard, and you're here, and you're going to do well this match. You're going to be proud of yourself, and this has an effect not only for yourself, but it does have an effect on your opponent too, in a good way, because the earlier you can show your opponent, like, this guy, he's not going away, he's here, like he has a presence about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or about her. You just don't want to take it overboard, like
you don't want to be having your nose up high to the sky.
Yeah, it's not.
You don't want to embellish these movies. You want to show confidence that you're ready to play. But one thing I've noticed, yes, this peacocking thing was very prevalent when I was growing up watching tennis. But I noticed maybe, I wouldn't say more on the women's side, but I do notice it on the women's side, and I've adopted it myself. Is I'll put my hoodie on when I walk around the court. I'll have my shoulders kind of down, and I'm just looking down on the court to make sure I'm focused. But as soon as the warm-up starts, my chest is up, I'm ready to go, and I'm showing that confidence. But for me personally, I like that concept of, I want to go into my little mental cave, that moment to myself where I try to eliminate any kind of distractions at all and just be with myself for a few moments before a match starts or a warm-up starts. So I think it's circumstantial. You definitely don't want to look like you're defeated or dejected right away, but I do get that notion of you want to be closed off, and you want to get focused for a moment or two. So I do like the idea of kind of putting your hood over your head, or even when you see players put their towel over their head, doesn't mean that they're necessarily dejected. They just want to really zero in on their focus, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when you're about to go play a point, when you're about to serve, when you're about to return, absolutely, you want to show that confidence. You want to show that you're ready to play, and you're there for a fight. You don't want to have your shoulders down and you look a little bit mopey right before you serve. Then that kind of almost looks like dinner for the player on the other side, and that's where, when I see it from the other side, that's where I kind of get pumped up and be like, okay, this person's down on themselves, this is my opportunity to take advantage.
Find what works for you, but generally speaking, have confidence and show it in your body language before you even step out onto the court, during the warm-up as well. And you'll be on your way there. So I think that's good for point one.
Yeah. I mean, if every single person in the world doesn't think you can win, you got to be at least the only person that thinks you can win, and then you'll have a chance. So, keep that positivity going. Sometimes it's difficult, it can change from point to point, from set to set, from game to game.
Yeah.
So just keep reminding yourself, try to bring yourself back to center and find that positivity from moment to moment.
Well put. Okay, number 2. Note momentum shifts within the match. When it's and slow down and speed up accordingly.
So what are some big momentum shifting scenarios? I think when you get broken, that's always a momentum shift for the returner and the server. Is it an opportunity to reset yourself and get the break back, or is it an opportunity for the person that broke to extend that lead and keep that pressure going towards the end of the set?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that you can really feel happen, and you just have to sort of have this kind of mindfulness about it. It's a very notable thing. So, and it's not necessarily when the score starts to get away from you. It could be even if you're up in the score, the momentum could be shifting towards your opponent, like towards their...
Well, it's like a balancing act, right? I mean, point to point, that momentum is shifting a little bit, and it's
hard to even define, but like you know it when you feel it, maybe you're
Sometimes you know it.
getting a bit more.
Sometimes I feel like you're not even aware of what's happening on the court. At least for me, sometimes. But definitely, if you're paying attention, and you can spot those subtle changes in a rally, even the momentum can change in a rally. You can be serving, you hit a bomb serve, you're in control of the point, you're running your person around. Then all of a sudden they hit an amazing defensive shot, and then all of a sudden you're on defense, and then the momentum of that point completely shifted.
Yeah. So some things you can do if you do feel this happening. If you feel like the momentum is not like, obviously if the momentum is on your side, you want to keep pressing that momentum. You want to lean into it. But if the momentum is on the opponent's side, or you feel it shifting to the opponent's side, maybe you just feel like this feeling of, oh, like maybe they could come back here, and you start getting those thoughts, like if you're up 4-1 and then you just feel that feeling like the momentum's shifting here, then you can take an extra second or two. Like if you're serving, just take an extra second or two,
Take
just
a
like
breath.
bounce the ball a few more times, just like those little things. Just break up the opponent's rhythm, just for a bit, and see
Within
how
the rules.
within the rules. Yes, I mean
Within the
you're completely, like a great example is if your opponent is winning, maybe they just broke you up to go up 4-1, let's say, right? And they consolidated, and they're ready. They're raring to go at the changeover, and they don't even sit down, and then they just like go back to the baseline to return your serve, and you're still in your chair, and they're bouncing around.
Yeah. Let them do it.
Yeah,
Let them bounce
don't
around.
don't go on their like leash, because they want to just get the set over with. They want to lean into their momentum, but your job then is to note that and say, and it's not like you're being an asshole or anything. Like I think that's important to understand. Like there's nothing that says that you have to get up from your chair when your opponent does.
Mm-hmm.
Typically that is what happens, especially if like you're kind of cordial and there's not much of that kind of thing going on where you're being rushed.
Yeah.
But if you feel that, even if a little bit like, oh, this guy's kind of rushing me, just stay in your chair however long you're allowed to. Wipe your face, the towel, take an extra sip of water. Don't look at your opponent, like don't say anything, but just like be chill. And yeah, that's.
I think
That's
from the other perspective as well is, if you're getting anxious and getting up really quickly and going to the other side trying to keep your momentum, that's also a tell. That's also a tell to your opponent that, oh, this person wants to get through this set. They want to capitalize on their momentum. This is a perfect opportunity for me to maybe push the ball a little bit more, right? Maybe keep the ball in play a little bit longer. So be aware of that. If you're recognizing someone is trying to rush, then try to use it to your advantage. Or also, if you're in the lead and you feel like you have the momentum, consider what got you there, right? Were you rushing up until that point? If that's the style of play that's been working the whole set, then maybe you keep going with it. But try to notice if there's been changes in your pace of play or in how quickly you get a point started. Because I noticed on the Pro Tour or high-level tennis, they'll wait, whether they're winning or losing, for the changeover to be over, pretty much. Right? As soon as the ref says time, both players get up, and I feel like it's a mental exercise. A player doesn't want to get up to show any kind of emotion or any kind of tell that can give information to the other player that they can use against them.
Although, I was watching Medvedev and Rublev.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Medvedev and Rublev. And Rublev was just dying on court. I don't know if you watched that match, but he was just completely just the heat got to him.
Okay.
And Rublev was just sitting there like totally like a pile of and Medvedev, he got up and he was like full of energy.
Yeah.
He ran past Rublev and like did like some butt kicks, like right in front of Rublev,
Yeah.
just so you could see him like have that energy. And the commentators like, oh, that was like they actually didn't notice it at first, and then one of the other a commentator said, let's go back to like what Medvedev did on the changeover, and so that was kind of
I think
very
that, to me that feels or sounds like he was doing that for himself. Because if you see, if you see someone dejected and they're down on themselves, like it's happened to me where I see people cramp that I'm playing against, and right away my mind wants to go, oh, I have this match, it's over, he's cramping, like all I have to do is just move him around. You can kind of go down a rabbit hole that way.
Yeah.
And then it's happened to me. I've seen players that were just all of a sudden really injured, and they had to change their tactic, and sometimes they would just hit moonballs against me, and it would work for a little bit. Like this person can't move, but they're hitting moonballs, and all of a sudden I can't put the ball away, and I'm having a harder time putting this opponent away than if I didn't notice that he was injured.
Yeah, I guess just wrapping up that point. Yeah, just be mindful of when you feel that momentum shifting. Always know that you can either lean into your momentum or break up your opponent's momentum within the rules.
Yes.
And be cordial about it. Yeah. So maybe don't do something like what Medvedev did there. Because I think in his case, maybe it did serve his personal purpose, but it was pretty it was on purpose that he did that. I mean, these guys they've known each other since they were 7, so like I'm sure they trash talk and like it doesn't affect them. Right?
Yeah, we don't know the relationship there. So
okay, number 3, adapt to the present situation strategically. So this just means things like don't get stuck in one mode of thinking if something's not working clearly. You might come to a tennis match with certain assumptions about your opponent, like, oh, I should pressure their backhand, but maybe your opponent knew that this is the strategy people had against him or her, and they worked on their backhand a lot before this tournament. And so you start going to their backhand and they're hitting winners, they're not missing, right? And you might get locked into thinking, well, I should just wait until they start missing, but that moment may never come. Maybe their forehand is actually weaker now, maybe they've put in so much work on their backhand that you should actually pressure their forehand, for example.
Or maybe just that day their backhand is on.
Could be. Could be.
So yeah, I guess what you're trying to say is don't, solidify a certain
have a plan B, have a plan C.
Exactly.
Yeah. Be
able to kind of change things on the fly, and also be aware of when should you change it. If it's not working for a game, if it's not working for 2 games, how long do you think you should wait before considering adapting your strategy or trying to change things up again? Personally, I think, I don't know, that's a tough one, to be honest, but if you're not getting just routed off the court, I would say stick to your game plan and try to adjust certain small aspects between maybe point to point. If you're getting blown off the court, then yeah, I would consider adapting and trying something a little bit different, but it's almost like you want to differentiate between a huge change strategically and minimal changes. Instead of if you're attacking the backhand side and it didn't work a few times because the player's backhand is strong or it's on today, ask yourself, well, is my setup good for the shot when I'm pressuring the backhand? Can I open up the backhand by opening up the court with the forehand a little bit? But if it's not working and you're down all of a sudden 4-love, then it's like, you know what? Maybe I'll just try hitting to the forehand a little bit and see if that changes.
Yeah. Drastic shifts in strategy can be good too. If it is happening that you're completely getting routed, right? So something completely out of left field, like start serving volleying all of a sudden, just like throw your opponent off.
Yeah. You don't have to stick with that strategy for the rest of the match. You can just do it for a point or
It's
two.
like a shock. It's like a shock to your opponent. Like, oh, why is he coming to the net all of a sudden? And then he's got like, oh, I got to do some passing shots here, and then in a couple of games, just once your opponent's a bit on off balance like that mentally, then you can go back to a different strategy.
I think the more you can make your opponent think, the better.
Yeah.
Just think of it on the other side. I mean, you're probably dealing with as much mental turmoil as the other person is. It's whoever's managing it better is usually going to come out more successful on the tennis court. But you kind of had a good example of one of your matches at Nationals, right?
Yeah, the semifinals against a fellow named Zachary White, and this was 16s Nationals, and I was down a set of 4-1, and I had been playing kind of attacking tennis, and at that moment when I was down 4-1, I was like, well, I don't have much to lose anymore. I might as well just completely change the strategy here, and I basically started like moonballing and pushing, like just not missing a ball. I decreased the pace of my balls by 25% or more, and what it made Zachary have to do is to, he liked to hit kind of winners. He had a very beautiful one-handed backhand and beautiful game. But he just missed a few balls, like easy putaways or something, and it just completely derailed him. And I think the end result was like, I got back to even, and then I won 7-5, and then I think the third set it might have been even 6-0 or 6-1. So
we'll have to check those stats.
Yeah, I don't know, it's somewhere, but
somewhere in the Tennis Canada archives.
I just remember how jarring that was, that because I adjusted the strategy pretty drastically, that completely derailed my opponent, because he didn't know how to deal with a player that he knew to be also kind of more aggressive player, to all of a sudden just start not missing. Yeah. And he couldn't rely on my mistakes anymore, and I think he was relying on that prior to the 4-1 game. And luckily it worked in that situation. It's not going to work every time, right? You're definitely not. I mean, but if you're down, like at that kind of score line, set 4-1, change it up completely. Just
I think that was the right strategy to go to, because at that point in the match, the pressure's on him to put you away, right? He's 2 games away from the match. He's 2 games away from a national final.
Yeah. There's
pressure building up. I mean, I don't care who you are. You're maybe not thinking about it in the forefront of your mind, but it's in there somewhere, right? And how you handle that situation really defines what you do in the match. And ask yourself, if you came out with that strategy, would the result have been
that's
different?
The thing, because no, it wouldn't have, because he would have gotten used to it, and he would have worked his way into the match that way and gotten used to that strategy.
And then he would build confidence, and you would have much more time to build confidence in his shots. All of a sudden, you're in that tight situation, there's pressure, and you miss that shot. Then you start overthinking, and then it kind of just goes down a little bit of a slippery slope. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, towards the end of the match, I started playing aggressively again. I started hitting out. I didn't keep going with that. It was just one of those temporary just kitchen sink kind of moments. I'm just gonna freaking play Michael Chang here for a bit or something, I don't know, and see what happens. And it worked out in that scenario.
I think those are great stories to hear, just kind of overcoming an obstacle and finding a way to win. I mean, that's what tennis is about. It's solving that puzzle.
I hated it, by the way. I hated playing like that. And there was a bunch of people watching, and they all know me not to be that kind of player. And I just hated the feeling. But I got the reward, because I went through that hatred of the feeling. I just kept my backhand. I remember my backhand just felt so off. And I just started basically tapping it in, just getting it over the net, and it was ugly, but it worked. And then towards the end of the match, I could play it, not as ugly. But
I think that's what matters, and kind of having the awareness to do that. A lot of maybe not a lot of players, but I see some players, they'll go down swinging with the ship. They'll stick to their tactic. no matter what, and they feel like their tennis looks good. Doesn't matter, and they'll go down swinging even if they lose that 6-love in the third set or in any situation, to be honest. But I think that's the difference of what makes national champions and the potential to make it in as a pro athlete. It's that disconnect that, okay, even though it's not going to be pretty, I got to find a way to win.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Sampras was a great example of that. He was sometimes puking on the tennis court and just doing whatever he could to win. And he come off the court, he's like, you know what, that wasn't my best tennis, but I won, and that's all that matters. You know? And I would hear sometimes Pete Sampras come off the court and be like, hey, I played amazing, and I still lost. Like, there's nothing I could have done that day. So that's the beauty of tennis, and kind of navigating through that. It's very interesting. A lot of fun sometimes, but a lot of torture too.
Jury's out on which one is higher, but I think it's a yin and yang kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I think that covers point number 3. Point number 4 is remember to fist pump. Give yourself positive reinforcement. Well, again, one of those things that if you do it, it not only helps yourself, it also signals to the opponent that you're still present and you are acknowledging your own success. And it's just, the only thing about this one is just when to fist pump, when it's not like if it's third set tiebreak 6-all and your opponent misses a forehand, you might be allowed to fist pump,
but just fist pump to yourself,
Don't make it, don't do like a Leighton Hewitt with the thing, with the Cobra. Especially if your opponent misses, like if they've been an asshole or something, then maybe you could do that. But if they do, at any moment when your opponent double faults, it's not allowed really socially.
Oh, I remember some college matches or university matches. You double fault and the home team is just going nuts and clapping. You're just looking like, seriously? Why? This is torture. Or I just remember parents like clapping when you would double fault. It's
that's kind of ugly. The college environment is so different though. It's just just very primal. It's just it doesn't matter how you. But generally speaking, in a tournament, with a typical kind of draw.
I think the rule is because I remember in juniors. I don't know if it was just for Tennis Ontario or Tennis Canada. But I remember I got a warning because I won a point and I fist pumped at my opponent, and a referee looked at me and was like, "That's a warning. You can't do that. You can't direct your fist pump at your opponent." And I always thought that was weird, but it resonated with me.
Must have been one aggressive fist bump that you did.
Apparently it was true. Apparently you're not allowed to direct your.
I've never heard that.
Your fist pump.
I've seen that so many times.
Yeah.
Especially women's tennis, actually.
Yeah.
Because women get really
But you see them fist pumping to their corner though. They're not actually going and directing their fist pump at the other player.
Oh no! I've seen when I'm going through my memory banks. The situations where I've seen that happen have all been girls. Yeah. Where they kind of do one of these come on. Yeah. And they just look straight at the opponent, glare at them.
Yeah. I guess that's at the ref's discretion,
But it's funny that.
I think if it's obvious, you're going like this to someone, then.
Yeah, I mean, then at that point.
Unsportsmanlike.
At that point, you might as well be giving a middle finger to someone.
Yeah, true.
Right? So as long as you don't feel like you're giving a middle finger to your opponent, then you're good. Definitely don't do it when your opponent double faults. I mean, you had nothing in that situation. You had no say,
Just give yourself positive reinforcement. You
hit
don't
a
have to say
winner.
anything out loud.
You grind out a difficult point, and your opponent misses, a volley that you made them reach for. That's okay, right? I mean, if they miss an easy sitter overhead, then maybe also don't fist bump. You can say come on to yourself, but it's circumstantial.
Yeah,
it really is.
Absolutely. But safe bet, you hit a winner, fist pump.
Yeah, that's fine.
And you do something good, fist pump. Something maybe not great happens on the court. Again, it depends on what the situation is, but again, we're saying fist pump. I've gone through phases where I don't like fist pumping for some reason, so just that head nod is really good. We were just kind of reading about not reading, but we saw a headline of what was it, something about the head movement? The positive head
we got to
movement?
look into more of those articles
But,
there. They're very some interesting things there, but something about there's
Just like that, come on, where you kind of just look like a
I think it was actually correlated with losing that
losing.
one. So there was
Maybe.
something about I don't we have to read those
But,
to really get it, but
I'm thinking of like Federer moments where he's just holding his racket and he's just going, come on, and he's not necessarily fist pumping. So I guess it depends on the person as well.
Yeah.
But
And of course, like, again, if you hit a winner, if you hit a winner after the opponent hit a net cord and it popped up for you, then first point of business is to just apologize.
right.
Like, even though you had no say in what the net cord did, it's still on you to kind of apologize for the fate that happened, like, to their ball. And then you can fist bump, I guess, like if you hit a really nice winner after that. But you should still apologize. If you don't apologize, it's taken as a slight. I mean, a lot of these things you'll feel it when you're there. Like if you're out of line, you'll feel it, and I mean,
At least for me, I always just felt like a negative energy when I felt like I crossed the line with some gamesmanship. I just like felt it in the back of my head. I was like, oh, that's probably too far. Like, whatever.
But even if that happens, like, don't like, don't dwell on the past. Like,
move on. Yeah,
move on to the next point. Like, even if you fist pump when your opponent double faulted because you were so invested, and like I think I've done that maybe once or twice myself, even though
Probably, definitely.
I'll tell everyone else not to do it, but I've done it a couple of times. Like when it was like, like I was crawling my way back into a match, and they were up 40-love in that game, and then I somehow scraped it back together, and then I eventually got a break point, and then they double faulted.
Yeah.
I might have thrown a little, come on, right? And then
It's almost like you can tell when they're the most sensitive, and you can tell we're like, okay, this is the opportunity that I'm gonna really piss them off if I do something. Or I remember like I would just do really not necessarily silly things, but in certain situations, if my opponent missed the first serve, I would walk up right up to the service line and pretend that I'm going to cut the second serve off, and then I'll just slowly back up as they're about to toss.
that's pretty extreme, yeah.
Well, maybe I'm not right up to the service line, but I would step in. I would step into like the middle.
I would go to the side.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I would
like into the doubles alley.
Yeah, like cover the back end.
That just threw people off. Like you'd see them do a double take.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially on break point, I would do that a lot on 30-40s.
Yeah.
And just move over. And then right as the point started, I would move back, right? Because you do want to cover that tee if they go for it. But most of the time, they wouldn't go for the tee.
I'm just trying to like stay active during a second serve. Obviously, you're not going on there waving your hands or anything like that. But it's okay to show energy. Show that you're intense, that you want to take advantage of a second serve. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not making noise with your feet or with your shoes. Then keep that energy up and don't be afraid to step into the court to, again, peacock, I guess you can say, in certain situations. But I think that was one of my favorite moves is, in pressure situations, they miss the first serve, I'll walk up, as reasonably as I think it's okay. Basically, I want to give myself enough time to run back when they start their motion. But I always found that it worked. I got so many free points.
It's within the rules, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Basically, I'm just telling the opponent that you're gonna hit a weak serve and I'm gonna crush it.
Yeah, you're showing you're mentally engaged and you're like you're trying stuff and you're, they're not gonna just get a predictable opponent.
Yeah. That one's so ingrained in me that I even do it to my students sometimes when we're playing points. And I'll just start walking towards the net when they're about to serve, and sometimes I'll go back, but sometimes I'll just do a half volley, basically return.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially if you can execute it. But from the other side too, is I've seen people do it to me, and it's just so tempting to crack a hard second serve at them. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Depends how confident you are in your second serve.
But yeah, just bringing it back here a bit, just positive reinforcement for yourself, right? If you do well on a point, do a fist bump. Say come on. Say vamos. Yeah. A lot of to discuss there, definitely.
Vamonitos.
But generally speaking, just remember to reinforce your own positive moments. Yeah. Okay. Last one, number 5. Fight for every single point.
That's a given in tennis. There's no time limits in most of tennis, most tennis matches. So there's no excuse to give up on a point. And don't get me wrong, I've done it. I'm sure I'm not gonna speak for Nick, but I assume most players that have competed at a high level have had moments.
I've tanked a few.
Yeah, that you were just screw this. I'm done.
Yeah.
If I win, then I'm going down swinging. But if I lose, I don't care. And I guess that's relative to how many tournaments you've played. I mean, I feel like combined we've probably played at least over 1,000 tournaments. I wouldn't be surprised. And it's still like I still feel ashamed after when I step off the court when
that's
when
the
I
worst.
do that. That's maybe in the moment I've done it, but I come off the court with regrets.
Yep.
And I rather lose and not and fight for every single point than win.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't know if I want to say it that way, but
Short term, it feels almost good because you're kind of pitying yourself and you're kind of you're giving up and you're almost saying, well, I'm not trying anymore, so I can't be like blamed for losing this one.
Yeah.
Because if you truly try and you still lose, it hits the ego harder. So the ego tries to get you to give up because then you have the excuse of, well, I wasn't trying.
Yeah, especially with tennis, that's where individual sports you can kind of get away with that excuse. Especially if you're playing singles, doubles might be a little bit different. You don't want to let your partner down. But
yeah,
if you're by yourself, it's easier to just throw in the towel because it's only you, and you're the only one that has to deal with that disappointment. So it's, personally, I feel like, what, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just hurting myself. I'm okay with it. Whereas if I was on a team, I see my team still fighting to get back in it, and maybe I'm not feeling it, I would use that energy to get in a better mind frame.
I knew this player named Emmett Egger, and he had this habit of before every point, he would just kind of mumble under his breath, fight, 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 fight.
Nice.
And it was funny because I kind of picked up that habit from him. Because it's a good one. He just, every single point, it accomplished several things. Firstly, he was motivating himself, giving him that reminder to just keep fighting every single point.
Yeah.
He was telling his opponent that he's fighting, right? I don't think I picked up the habit of actually saying it out loud, but I would repeat it in my head, like before every point.
Yeah.
And maybe even, unconsciously mumbled it eventually too. And it worked really well. It doesn't matter what the score is. You are still motivating your body, your mind to just fight for every single freaking ball. And
because you don't know what can happen. Right? You could be up 6-love, 5-love, 40-love, and still lose a match,
or be down that.
I remember Jesse Levine. I grew up playing with him, and he ended up going to Florida when he was 14, and he ended up winning U16 clay court nationals or something. And again, I don't know if this story was true, but from my friends, apparently the story was he was down 6-love, 5-love, 40-love in the finals of nationals, and somehow came back and won singles. Singles on clay too. So again, I don't know if it was that extreme, but apparently he saved triple match point and won nationals. So
I know for a fact I came back against Darian Naimir, Hazelmere Country Club. I was down. I don't think I was down 6-0, 5-0, but I was down the first set 5-0, 40-love, and I came back and won the set 7-5, and then I won the match after. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the thing about it is it might seem like a huge gulf to overcome, but when you're just look at how many points you have to win, it's not that many. You just have to
win the next one.
That's true, yeah. Because the thing about it is it seems overwhelming to win all those points.
Yeah.
But think about it. Okay, you down 40-love. Well, you hit one good forehand, the opponent misses a backhand, and you hit a volley winner. You're back to even. And then from there, it's the next game, You don't go down 40 love, right? And it just keeps going like that, and you get back into it.
Things
It can happen
quickly.
so fast.
Yeah.
Happens so freaking fast. And your opponent will be shaking your head like, what the heck happened? So and then especially if that happens, then you've got so much momentum for the second set, or to get back in, or for the third set. It's misleading. The scoreline can be very misleading, I think, is the general idea here. You just fight for every single point, and
Scores can always be
anything
misleading.
can happen.
I've been in every kind of corner of this situation where I've lost like 6-love, 6-1, and it's been a tight match. Like every game went to deuce.
Yeah.
I just didn't capitalize on those situations. I've had matches where it was tight, but it kind of wasn't. It was like maybe a 6-4 set, but I knew I was in control the whole time. you know?
Even like 7-5s.
Exactly, and it's very strange. I've had blowouts where I've won 6-love, 6-love, and almost every point was mine. But even in those situations, you gotta have that
every game
mentality
is
all the
deuce,
way
you
through.
feel it. Like it could be a 6-0 set, but every game could have gone to deuce.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not gonna walk out of that like maybe someone looking at the draw will be like, oh, that was a blowout, but again, that's just misleading. It could have been could have not been like that. You see scorelines sometimes too, like 6-1, 1-6, 7-6 or something. It's like such huge momentum shifts. So if you're not fighting for every point,
You shouldn't be playing tennis. I'm just kidding.
well, look, you got pros now like Kyrgios that, I guess it's the Australians that are giving that a bad name.
I mean, for all the tennis players that are out there, it's a small percentage. It's just they get blown up in the media because they're professionals, but it's mainly just one or two people out of now there's 750 ranked
Yeah, I mean
players.
the guy that comes to mind is Kyrgios, right?
Yeah.
Because he genuinely tanks points when he's no longer feeling like trying.
Yeah. But you never saw McEnroe do that, right? He can get as angry, dejected, throw his racket and give up on himself. But I don't think he's ever tanked a match.
It is a bit unfortunate. I mean it's kind of like Kyrgios is kind of like a jester almost, like a capable jester.
Yeah.
Like he's really good, obviously, but those tendencies of his, they could cost him never winning a Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Because he is a very good player. He's a very talented player, like
with a very big ego.
Big ego, yeah. But
yeah, I think he needs to be humbled a little bit, and who knows? I mean, Agassi had 2 careers, and first half of his career he was considered the flashy kind of rebel.
Yeah.
And then the second half of his career, he was the philanthropist, the very calm, very nice, kissing the crowd type of person. And who knows? Kyrgios is still relatively young. He's still got time to change things around, or he won't. So, I guess time will tell.
Yeah, time's a ticking, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to win a Grand Slam if you can't give it your all for 7 matches, right, in a Grand Slam. Over 2
I just
weeks.
can't see him unless he changes something fundamentally. It's really hard to imagine him being in like a 5-set, just like dogfight like Djokovic would be, and just coming out of that on top. Like he could get lucky and do that maybe, but he has to try.
But you're gonna see gaps. Like you'll see a 6-1 somewhere in there. Yeah. Whereas legendary matches, you see Nadal, Federer. A lot of them, some of them are blowouts, but when they're really engaged in battle, it's like 7-6, 6-4, 3-6. Like you rarely see a 6-2, you rarely see a 6-1.
Yeah, because even if they're down 5-0, they get a few more games back before they lose the set. Like,
so, I guess now at their age, they'll throw the set to save their energy for the next ones. Maybe. But for sure, when they were starting, when they're in their early 20s.
Yeah, but they don't do it out of ego. Like,
that's just strategy.
Yeah,
right? So it's a little bit different.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's our list. Hopefully you take away something from it, and we'll be back next week with something. Maybe we'll do another video version next week or something. Do some more analysis or.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. See you on the courts.
See ya.